Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, parents, guests, students. Good morning. We have Dr. Vincent here with us as well. Good morning, our principal. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our webinar today, when we bring two leaders together to have a dialogue with you on the top 3 ways to unleash the leadership potential in young people today. This is part of a series of webinars we have called the Breakthrough Stories, Journey of Hope at Fairview International School. So we have Lian, the president of Fairview Student Council, who will share his insights and his own breakthrough moments as he discovered his leadership talent in the school. And we have Mr. Paul Kennedy, our assistant principal of Fairview International School. And together, they will identify and share the top 3 tips that help them develop their leadership potential. So before we begin, kindly allow me to share the meeting etiquette. I would really appreciate if you could mute your microphone. We hope that this would give you a better webinar experience. If there are any questions along the way, do feel free to type them at the chat box. We will be taking questions at certain junctures. And if you'd like to unmute your mic at that point to ask us and have a dialogue with us, most welcome. Thank you, each every one of you, for following and observing our meeting etiquette today. We have with us, allow me to introduce Mr. Paul Kennedy, I mentioned assistant principal in Fairview International School, Kuala Lumpur. He has been an international educator for more than 25 years, that's a quarter of a decade. He has been a teacher, a university lecturer, a manager, a consultant, and the principal both in the private and government sectors. He's also worked in China, Japan, Qatar, Malaysia, and Australia. And Lian Edward Nelson is a first-year diploma in education student and is our president of Student Council in Fairview International School, Kuala Lumpur. He has been a peer leader for as long as he could remember, and he believes that the most rewarding part of leading others is able to collaborate with a myriad of people and harnessing the beauty and strength of working in teams. Let me present to you Mr. Paul Kennedy.
Good morning, everybody. And firstly, let me say welcome and thank you for taking some time out of your, I'm sure, busy weekend to sit with us for a little while this morning. Firstly, let's talk a little bit about education, about parenthood, about what we want for our children. And then we'll look at how we might encourage them to develop leadership skills along the way. I think what we all want for our children is a great education, of course, a great start in life, a great career in the future. But more than anything, I think we hope that they will be able to realize their potential, overcome whatever it is that's holding them back, and create their own breakthrough moments, their own breakthrough pathway. Can we have the next slide?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So let's see a little bit about how this fits in to the context of an IB education at Fairview, because I sincerely believe that an IB education is a fantastic setting in which we can develop leadership skills in young people. But I think I'd like to suggest a few points of why I think that's the case. I think IB offers a wide-ranging education. It offers depth within subjects, but at the same time, it offers a range of subjects. I'd like to say that also there is a great interconnectedness of subjects that very much reflects the reality outside school. Inside school, of course, we develop we divide our teaching and learning into subjects, but out in the world, this doesn't happen. Can we go back to the slide before? Number 14. That's the one. Thank you. Now, another point, it came up briefly at the start of today's session, and that is agency. And what I mean by agency is that young people, students, are not passively receiving the education that we download to them. We need young people to be actively learning, actively inquiring, engaged in the process of their own learning and development. If they have ownership of the process, even ownership in small ways of the decision making, then they are invested in their own learning, and this helps them directly develop right from the beginning, way down in PYP1 even, and reception, the beginning of leadership skills. Leadership skills don't just magically happen. They happen because we set the groundwork early on, and little by little, we build this up and we establish an environment in which, a nurturing environment, in which young people, little by little, start realizing that potential that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Okay, let's have a look at the next slide. There's a lot of talk out there, the secrets or the keys or hints or tips of encouraging young people to develop their leadership skills. You might find the numbers 3, 5, 9, 15, any numbers. I think though, that upon reflection, we can distill them, we can condense them into 3 broad areas, whatever the number is. I think there are generally 3 broad areas, and these simplified areas are the ones that we would like to explore with you in today's session. Let's look at the next slide. So, leadership skills, what are they? We hear the term a lot, but what does it really mean? Why are they important? And how do we develop them in young people? These are some of the questions that we'll unpack today. Let's move on. So, I believe that these 3 broad areas are as follows. A manager manages. A manager is working with the details, the nuts and bolts. Go make this happen. But the leader leads. We'll unpack that a little in a few minutes as well. The second point I would like to propose is that a leader is a conductor. A leader is not the solo star. A leader is a coordinator of everybody's efforts. The last point is that it's not about self-glorification. It's not about having your name on the CEO's door. It's not about any of that. It's really true leadership, genuine leadership, is about dedicating yourself, your focus to service on to others. That's what it's all about. Okay, let's move on. So a manager manages while a leader leads. A leader translates the big picture into action. That is, the leader is operating at a higher level, really, almost an abstract level. What is our mission? Where are we going? And then coordinates everything, all the moving parts, to make sure that we are all working together in that direction. Another point, I think, is that the leader is focusing on the optimal. And by focusing on the optimal, what I really mean is not the minimum, not the maximum. What is the right amount of input required? What is the best amount of input required to achieve the best outcome? That takes a lot of trial and error, and it is an ongoing process, but I think it's fundamentally important to great leadership. Okay, let's move on to the second of our 3 points. Be the conductor and not the solo star. We will certainly be unpacking this one a little later. Lian, from his own experience, has a lot to share about working with his team on our student council. But to set a little context leading up to that, you've got to surround yourself with a great team. You've got to see their potential and you've got to nurture it. You've got to develop that. Again, you're the conductor. You're not the solo star. You've got to trust but validate. And what I really mean by trust but validate, you delegate. You give your team the authority to get things done. You don't want them coming back to you to make every little decision along the way. You're only one person and you just can't do it. So good leadership is about delegating to your team, letting them just go and get things done. But you want to be reported back to. You want to know what's going on. You want your finger on the pulse, as it were. But you mustn't involve yourself in these little intricate micromanaging details. Lian, a question, please.
Yes, Mr. Paul, I have a question. So you've mentioned something about surrounding yourself with a great team and developing them. And I just wanted to ask, how do you at first develop and surround yourself with a great team? How do you build a great team initially, and how far can it get you?
Well, good question. I'm sure that there's more than one way of doing that. But I think you need to, whatever your personal feelings are, whether you like somebody or you don't like somebody, that is, liking somebody is never a reason to bring them onto a management team. Remember, we're talking about the distinction between leadership and management. You don't promote your friends. You don't give your friends authority like that. Your personal feelings, whatever they might be, are not relevant. You look at somebody's track record, and especially you extrapolate from their track record to their potential. And a good leadership is able to see that potential around them in others and nurture it, encourage it, develop it, but also authorize it. Again, trust but validate. So you look around you, who has the potential? Who's already got a good track record? Who can go further? And then you create the environment in which they are able to do that. You don't want them running off to you to make every little decision. You want them to just keep you in the loop, but go off because they know that you trust them to do a great job. Thank you for the great question. Okay, moving on to the last point here. Always lead by example. The great leader does not come into the office late, does not take a long lunch break, for example, does not leave early. The great leader leads by example. You're the first one in at the start of the day, you're the last one out at the end of the day. I'm going to touch upon this in a moment as well, but something we give up when we take on positions of leadership is anonymity. You can't just slip in and out. Everybody's eyes are upon you. We have a surprising amount of visibility as leaders. It was one of the first things I learned when I took on leadership positions. Wow, I got no more anonymity. I can't just quietly slip out and grab a sandwich from the cafeteria because there's 100 pairs of eyes watching me and looking at what I'm doing. So always make sure that people see you at your best. You are always highly visible. Can we move on to the next slide? So I think this is fundamentally true and fundamentally important. We don't become leaders for the glory. We become leaders to help others, to add value for the largest number of people possible, to weigh up what is in the best interests of all of our stakeholders. How do we get all of those stakeholders engaged and involved, and how do we serve them best? So if you're the leader, there is no time to put your feet up and take it easy. Hard work, and always be ready to get your hands dirty. You don't tell people what to do, you do things. You are seen doing things. I think this is so profoundly true. So focus on others and make sure you are at the forefront, working as hard and harder than any other member of your team, not sitting up the back, taking it easy. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So how do we build these? How do we help young people build these skills? I mentioned lead by example. I think I've probably said enough about that one. Agency, in little ways, gradually, you create the nurturing environment in which young people are actively involved in the decision-making, as much as that makes sense at particular age levels. They are actively engaged in their own learning. They are not passively on the receiving end. So I think this is really important. Another thing is it doesn't just happen. Now, when I say lead by example here, I also don't only mean as teachers or as administrators, even as parents. I think this is also fundamentally true. Bigger, older brothers and sisters leading by example for the younger brothers and sisters. All of us lead by example and create that environment where young people's voices are heard and young people are part of the process of their own lives, not just passively on the receiving end of what other people expect of them. Lian, another question?
Yes, sir, I have another question. So you've mentioned how leadership doesn't just happen. And so I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what does it take to become a leader? Or rather, in the analogy provided earlier, the conductor. Is there any prerequisites which someone must have or to be born with in order to become the leader? Must they be extroverted? Must they be outgoing, or any other values that they must have or strive towards to actually become a leader, especially for us younger generations?
Wow, okay, great question. It's a little counterintuitive maybe, but I don't believe at all that you need to be extroverted to be a great leader. To speak personally, just for a moment, I'm quite introverted myself. However, I don't feel it has ever held me back. All of us have great potential. It's just a question of us being the adults in the room, so to speak, creating the nurturing, positive environment where young people feel valued and know that their voices are heard and that they are encouraged, almost expected to participate. Now, participation may be more introverted, it may be more extroverted, and all of that's fine. I'd also like to say that in my own opinion, being the leader, there are many ways of being a leader. It doesn't just mean you're the boss. I don't believe that's what we're talking about. A leader may be someone who speaks loud and clear on an important issue. That is not a leader in terms of an organization, but a leader in terms of public opinion, public debate. Something that comes to mind is the Swedish girl, Greta Thunberg. She is a leader on environmentalism. She's nobody's boss, but she is a leader. And I think this is something that we can look at clearly. What do we mean by leadership? Not just being the boss, absolutely. And all of us have the potential to speak loud and clear and be influential and be a voice and a force for good. Again, goes back to service for others. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I'd like to share a few points, just very personal, not from a website, not from anything, just my own experience. As I said, the first one I've kind of covered already. You can kiss goodbye to your anonymity. Leaders, whether we realize it or not, are very high profile, very highly visible. There's no sneaking out for a little chocolate bar when you've told everybody you're on a diet. They will see it, they will judge you. So you are very much in the public eye. Another point, and I've really kind of learned this one the hard way myself, but it's never let people see you sweat. I don't mean that literally. I mean that if you are the leader, yeah, you're having a tough day. Yeah, things are not going the way you like. You're frustrated, you're stressed. Make it look easy. Inspire confidence. You want your team not to stress. You take the stress and you hide it away. You compartmentalize it. But you don't want, if you are seen to be stressed, everyone else feels the pain, and then productivity will drop. So nobody sees you sweat. Whatever it is, it's happening out the back. The public face that you present is calm, in control. Everything's great. Everything's going according to plan. We got this. This is fundamentally important because as leaders, we have a lot of impact on the people around us, on the team, that we don't even realize sometimes. You take on the stress and inspire others to be calm and confident because everything is running great. Last point I found, probably also from personal experience, is always under-promise and always over-deliver. And what I mean by that is that if you say, I'm going to do 10 of them by Friday, nobody complains if you deliver 15 by Thursday. Everybody will complain if you deliver 7 by the following Monday. So always under-promise, and then people will be impressed that you do more and sooner. So over-deliver. This is a great way, again, of inspiring confidence in the people around you. You're the leader. You've got it all under control. Everything's great. Okay, next slide. That's just about it from me. So I think we can open it up now to if anyone has any questions and answers about that so far.
I think, Lian, do you have something to ask, Lian?
Yes, Mr. Paul, I just have one other question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I want to ask you that I just want to ask a personal question, but where
please.
Your journey in leadership began, and what are some tips and other words of advice that really helped you push you forward in your journey as a leader?
Oh gosh, I think my own leadership journey, it's hard to say the exact point. I mentioned earlier, I'm personally quite a bit of an introvert, and I think in a way I let that, wrongly in hindsight, kind of hold me back. But I think it probably began about 16 years ago, I think, when I was living in Abu Dhabi. And I was put into a leadership role. I didn't put my hand up, it just, I found myself in a leadership role. I was working on a government reform project for the public sector schools in Abu Dhabi, in the UAE. And I thought, you know, this is actually really cool. I really like this. I actually like doing this stuff. And that was the beginning of it. But like anything, you learn by trial and error. It's not about doing it perfectly. If you're doing it perfectly, you're lying to yourself, really. I think you learn through trial and error. And this is perhaps another one of the secrets to success in anything, but particularly in being a good leader. Don't expect things to run smoothly. It's not about everything being perfect. It's about optimally dealing with things when they don't go well. That, I think, is one of the components of great leadership. Things come up, things don't always run smoothly. But what you need to do is that you need to be calmly and confidently well able to handle whatever comes up and stick to the mission, stick to the big picture. Okay, so if there are no more questions for me, and thank you everybody for your kind attention, I think we'll hand over to Lian now and hear about his own breakthrough moments on his pathway to leadership along the way as he became the president of our student council at Fairview. So thank you, Lian. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. Next slide, please. All right, so starting off, as you guys know, my name is Lian Nelson, and I'm the president of the Student Council here at FISKL. I've been in a leadership role ever since the beginning of 9th grade, which is when I was elected as the grade level leader within the Student Council. So essentially, my leadership pretty much started at the bottom of the Student Council, and as the years progressed from 10th grade to 11th grade and to IBDP, which is when I now am the president of the Student Council, well, have been elected as the Student Council. And throughout that particular time, I've seen my skills in leadership evolve. What I've make of it, as well as what I think what being a leader really truly means. And so today I'm just going to share with everyone here some of the things which I've learned of what it means to be a leader, and some of the skills and tips that really helped me into developing my leadership skills. And one of the most important things which I firstly began to understand is to be a leader and not a boss, which is also something Mr. Paul here has also mentioned, which is to be the conductor and not the sole star. And so, to be very honest, when I started out my leadership journey in 9th grade, I was a bit stubborn, shall we say. I had the mindset that I am the person in charge, so everything shall go through me. I'm the most important person in my team, and so everybody should always listen to what I say, and whenever I say no, then it doesn't go. And that kind of have a really counterintuitive, contradicting mindset into what it actually means to be a leader. Because one day when someone suggested to me to try something out, try something different, instead of bossing people around, why don't you lead them and guide them throughout, and so that you and your team can basically prosper? And so I tried that, and I've never had something gone as smoothly as it did before, instead of just bossing people around. So, which is going to be coming up to my first point on what you do influences your team. Be what you want your team to be. Now, when I say this, definitely whatever you do can influence anyone, maybe people you care about. But as a leader, people are looking up to you. They will judge you, and most importantly, be influenced by you. How you uphold yourself as an individual and as an employee, or even as a member of the Student Council, or as the president of the Student Council, will definitely have an effect on how the members of the Student Council, or maybe other members in your team, will definitely look up to you. And if you set an expectation which you yourself can't really even achieve, then it's not really for you to expect that of your team as well. So be the person who you want your team to be. And the next one, which is like what Mr. Paul has mentioned, trial and error. You're never always right, admit mistakes and work on improving them. This has been one of the most important things I've personally taken note of throughout my leadership role. And to this day, I am still making mistakes, because I pretty much still just started my journey in leadership, as you know, it's just a few years, and now as the president of the Student Council. And from time to time, mistakes has happened. But I think one of the most important things is to admit that the mistakes are there, and make sure that you work on improving those mistakes. Because as a leader, you should focus on trying to not make the same mistakes twice. Because if you make a mistake, everyone will know it. And so if you really just avoid or completely go into denial of mistakes, then you're not really truly being exactly what it means to be a leader. Thirdly, provide advice and direction. Don't communicate tasks without setting the end goal with your team. Now, this is something that has has been shared to me as advice by Dr. Vincent Chia, which really stuck with me, which is to set the end goal in mind before you want to complete the task, which I believe is very important because it just sets the foundation, it sets the general direction for you and your team to go towards. And you as a leader is not to really always be pushing them from the back into that particular direction, but instead let them walk to that direction alone. But whenever they start going astray, you as a leader are there to pretty much just nudge them into the correct direction and make sure that you are also leading the pack. So as you guys can see here with the picture I provided, the leader would also definitely be in the front of the pack, where instead the boss will be behind trying to guide or trying to push everyone forward, which is not essentially what it exactly means to be a leader, but rather a boss. So be a leader and not a boss. Next slide, please. Value your team. Now, this is one of the most, if not the most important value, which I've learned as well. Because during my leadership skills, I have people within my own leadership team as well, who have definitely been one of the greatest helps and the greatest guidance I could ever seek for within the Student Council, especially throughout my journey in leadership. And is to always value your team. Just because you're a leader and they're not leaders does not mean that they are not valued or they have no value. They are individuals with their own mind, with their own ideas, and definitely you as a leader should not be completely disregarding that, but instead inspiring more ideas towards them and procuring their ideas to incorporate into your own plans. And so starting off with the first point with valuing your team is to never, ever micromanage. Because micromanaging is something I would say a really old mindset that really just doesn't really work in leading anymore. Micromanaging, yes, maybe there's some particular roles which does focus on micromanaging, but to be a leader is to not micromanage because the people who you lead can manage themselves very well. So it's important that, like, as Mr. Paul has mentioned, is to trust them and let them get on with the task. Because definitely, people do make mistakes. And as I mentioned before, as a leader, you make mistakes and you've got to work on improving them. And this idea is not entirely exclusive to leaders, but also affects your team as well. If you know they're going to make mistakes, don't be afraid to let them sometimes make mistakes, but always be prepared to help them get through those mistakes. Because then again, everything is a learning process, especially when everyone here is still completely, well, in my team, we're still quite new to leadership. It's essentially important that we make mistakes, especially together, and we get through them together. And we provide the criticism, constructive criticism, if you will, to really push each other to strive forward. And so one of the examples which I really do like to use is basically a gardener. So if you guys can see the picture here. So let's say you have a garden and a task is given to you to make sure that there are a certain amount of plants and flowers of certain species in order to prepare for a wedding. You lead a team of gardeners and you tell them the goal is to make sure that the garden is appropriate for a wedding and the bride and groom requested for certain flowers and such. Once that is done, you and your team get on with the task at hand. And you as a leader should lead them. Just say, hey, this goes here, this goes there, and I'll trust you to get on with the job. You don't need to micromanage. You don't need to tell them that tool is better. You need to cut, you need to trim this rose into this particular shape. You don't, maybe if you move that a bit to the left, you move that a bit to the right. You don't need to do that much micromanaging, because all you need to do as a leader is just go ahead, validate, and if there's anything that needs to be done, give them that guidance and advice, and then go on cracking on with the job. Because then again, it goes back to the idea is trusting your team. Now, another really important thing is to listen to the ideas. You aren't the only one with a brain. Oh, before I go on, yes, Mr. Paul, you have a question?
I'm sorry to interrupt your flow. I was wondering, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I wonder if, can you think of an example from your own experience of a mistake that you made or something that you got wrong but were able to get right? Or maybe a time when you micromanaged something and learned that micromanaging is not the way forward?
Definitely. Well, going back, I think one of the examples would have been a bake sale that we were which we were doing many years ago. Well, not many years ago, but a couple of years ago when I was in 9th or 10th grade, where basically I was handled the task to organize a bake sale. And so I just got into the idea, okay, everybody, you need to tell me what you're doing, and we're gonna have exactly this thing. You need to make sure you make these type of cookies, you need to make sure you use these ingredients. And so there was a lot of things which I was just kind of overreaching, overextending, because I just had the ideas that, oh, I'm the leader, so I'm the only person that's actually capable of really setting goals or really managing people. But then later on throughout, I started having a bit of more of an understanding that, with the suggestion that was given, that these people can definitely manage themselves. You just give them the task and trust them to do it, and just see how it goes. If guidance is needed, then you go ahead and give the guidance. It's not about really just grabbing your hand and pulling them all the way, even though they know where to walk towards. And so that was kind of the example that really settled with me. And so that later on still really provides like the foundation for never micromanage. There are some times where I definitely micromanage throughout my years, even sometimes back then, but I do get back into understanding like I'm making things too complicated. I should just give the leeway for my team to really strive and push towards the goal which they have been tasked to do. So that would have been one of the examples.
Thank you.
All right, so back to the second point, listen to the ideas. You aren't the only one with a brain. Ideas are crucially essential, because one of the things which I tend to understand as a leader for a constituency, which would be students, an idea that's made up by one individual just never ever represents an idea which works for everyone. And that's one of the most important things in leadership, especially leadership in service, is that you need to listen to the ideas, especially with the people who you are going to be working with or you are working for, which would be the constituents of the student council, which would be the student body here at FISKL. And so it's incredibly crucial for me as a leader to listen to the ideas, because yes, I may be a leader, but they also have a brain. And so they would have their ideas as well. They would have their own interests, their own concerns, their own criticism. What are we doing wrong and what can we do better? And it's not about the sense of just making them feel valued, but it's about using this actual value at your disposal in order to incorporate to your planning, so that you yourself as a leader and an organization can actually move forward, prospering together with an idea that's made fairly and involves all the minds within your own team. So that's one of the most important things as well in regards to valuing the team. And thirdly, is to be sensitive to your team's individuality. Everyone's unique, and don't use the same style for every individual. But what do I mean by style? So as you guys know, definitely some people, they have a different type of leadership style. And, maybe, from a team leader, or maybe even to the president or senior vice president, or even in any other different type of organizations, there's definitely a different style. And so within your own team, everyone has a unique set of personality and an individual. And it's you as a leaders to adapt your leadership style, which works best for them, to be sensitive and adapt to their individuality, so that the way your leadership style is adapted to them is the most effective. Because definitely sometimes you can be very straightforward with a person who can definitely be trusted, and maybe someone might need a little bit more guidance, but it's more crucially important that you respect and acknowledge their individuality. Next slide, please. Delegate, collaborate, and coordinate. And so in the first point, I'm going to emphasize this again, seriously, do not micromanage. As a leader, definitely, as what Mr. Paul has mentioned, is to not be the solo star. You can't really see yourself always being the person that's doing everything, because you as a leader, your main target is to bring people together to work on a task, and that means delegating tasks. You can't always just be that one person who is doing all of the tasks that's been delegated to together. Because you as a leader, you have to bring people together in order to accomplish a goal. And that would mean delegating, collaborating, and coordinating each of the teams within your organization in order to achieve the task. So you need to offload whatever you can. Now, it's not everything you can, but offload what you can, what you think your team can definitely achieve and definitely can be achieved by your team. And if you can do that, this gives you more time as a leader to help lead and focus onto many of the other leadership responsibilities that you may have, because I'm sure that many of you guys that are in leadership definitely has you know, a lot of responsibility to tend to maybe in work life or maybe in your private life. And me as well, definitely, along with my other vice presidents as well, would definitely agree that, you know, balancing both the student council and our academics is definitely something that we have to really consider as well. And so, so it's also crucial that you can offload what you can, but never ever just give it to them without telling them or without giving them any guidance. Provide guidance and then trust them to get on with the job. Thirdly, be able to coordinate with the rest of the team. Don't focus on every little detail, because they as individuals can definitely manage that as well. Because as Mr. Paul has mentioned, you can definitely go ahead and check once and just to validate that everything is all right. Then you trust them to get on with the job after on. So it's important that you can always also coordinate with other team leaders and also trust them to get on with the job. Next slide, please. Be proactive and not reactive. Now, this is also another thing which definitely has helped me is to fall under this different mindset where we rather be proactive instead of reactive. Now, within the school year, in my own personal experience, as the quarter or as the semester progresses, more and more things definitely start coming in, especially in regards to my personal academics, with more reports or tasks are being delegated. So even outside of the academic spectrum, it's really important to also try to start getting into a proactive mindset, because it's not because if you always keep reacting to a problem when it arises, then you're not really preparing yourself for the other things that might come in, because whenever a problem does arises, could be one problem, could it be two problems? Are you managing other things as well at the same time? So it's really crucial that you as a leader should definitely try to have some form of forward planning in order to prevent any of these problems or give time for you to manage anything that might come in the future. So you need to prepare yourself and your team for the task beforehand and not when the need arises. Spending your own and your team's time efficiently and effectively. And now this is really crucial, because you can't always just pop into a meeting for 1 hour and 15 minutes and have a discussion and not really come up with an action plan. You need to make sure that within that 30-minute time frame, you can just get something together and have your team have a goal and an understanding on what to do to move forward with the task. And you can't always just really spend time recklessly, because time is, as the saying goes, time is money. And thirdly, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And now this is definitely something that has kept with me and it really just emphasizes an idea is that if you always keep doing the same thing that you've always done, which is reacting, then you always get what you've always got, which is, you know, a lot of problems and issues which arises when you are reacting to a problem instead of preventing the problem arising in the first place. Next slide, please. And finally, communication is essential. As a leader, the only thing that really helps bridge between you and your team is communication. And it's absolutely essential that you, as the leader, take the initiative to establish that strong sense and strong mindset of communicating between your team and yourself. So it's not always about just having communication, but it's rather what and how you communicate. Are you going to communicate about a discussion? Are you going to communicate what are the tasks given for that day, or any of the updates that you want, or rather what are the things that might arise, and maybe even some forward planning as well, because it's also important for you to set aside some forward planning and just to think about what do you want to communicate to your team, how do you want to communicate it, and what type of communication do you expect to get back. And then you as a leader must definitely try to encourage that form of communication between you and your team. Because when you are setting along with the task, as you guys can see here with this Venn diagram presented, you have your goals, your actions, and your mindset. And right in the center of these three circles would be alignment. So before ever setting a task, which is to set the end goal in mind before actually going along with the task, you must have that sense of alignment. You need to make sure that all your goals and the actions and the mindsets are aligned between yourself and the team. Otherwise, once you start the task without having that form of alignment, then the goals and the actions and the mindset that you have initially, and the mindset and the actions and goals of your team that has will basically differ, and that would be at the fault of not having effective communication. So make sure the goals of your team and yourself are aligned before starting a task. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all for my presentation. Yes, Mr. Paul.
Actually, I got a couple of questions. I hope it's okay.
Yeah, sure.
The first one is a quick one. Fairview, just like most schools or all schools at the moment, really, we're very busy preparing for the gradual reopening, year level by year level, of course. But you mentioned that bake sale, and as a lover of baked goods, I wonder, and I hope, is the Student Council going to do another one of these bake sales when we kind of all do get back to school? I'm hoping the answer is yes.
Oh, definitely. So yes, the bake sale. Whenever we talk about reopening, a bake sale is definitely always mentioned in our meetings. So you can definitely expect some goodies and treats and cookies to definitely be prepared sometime for when the school reopens. And as you can see, well, one of my junior vice presidents in the chat box is very enthusiastic about having another bake sale when school reopens. So you can definitely look forward to that.
Please keep me posted. I will be there in the queue on the day.
Will do, sir. Will do.
I will be a good customer. My second question is a little less lighthearted. I'm wondering, did Fairview help you become a leader? Or do you think that there was like other factors or events that were helping you become a leader? Was it a combination?
I would say it's a combination, because definitely there are some ways which Fairview, as a school, with through the curriculum provided, definitely has a sense where it kind of directly challenge your leadership skills, maybe through reports, tasks, and whatnot. But I think one of the most important things that really helps bring out the leadership within me is the Fairview community, because I think starting out with the Fairview community, I think the Fairview community has definitely, in a way, really encouraged me to push forward, especially with seeing so many bright minds within this community, as maybe some of you guys here may have been to the webinar which happened a few weeks ago with Anaf Rahman, who was my senior, who was also used to be the president of the Student Council, which a person who definitely has inspired me as well to try to really test my leadership skills, and many other people within the Fairview community as well, maybe not just students, but administrators and teachers as well. All these wonderful people within this community definitely helped me as a leader to be pushed forward, to challenge my leadership skill and challenge my thinking process as well. So I would say the Fairview community has definitely helped me one way or another to really encourage my leadership skill.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Hi, Lian. Hi, Lian. Thank you for the very. I have with me a question, and this question is more your advice to the younger students out there, younger teens out there, or those who've not quite yet taken the step forward to lead. They make the shift from a then regular student to a student leader. I think today, even my own children, they're most happy to be led. So to them, maybe leading takes a lot more effort. There's sacrifices and commitment. Watch more engage. So thoughts in that way.
Hello, Miss. Sorry, you were cutting out there, Miss.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I said for the students out there, like, how did you make that shift, a regular student to become a student leader? What made you make that shift?
Well, now that's an interesting thing, because back then, when I got into that that central position of leadership, there was I would say I wasn't really anything special. I was just like, I was just, just a regular student, that was just pretty much put into that leadership role. And essentially, the advice that I would give is that there's nothing that you can really prepare yourself, because there is not like huge big prerequisite into being a leader. Because I think being a leader is pretty much a learning process, and it develops once you actually step into that role of leadership. So I think definitely one of the most important things to it, maybe for some people who just maybe a bit shy, or maybe maybe just be wondering if this is such a huge and dubious task, just start small. You don't really have to take the path that I did, and being a president of the student council. No, not at all. Because like
overnight.
Yeah, definitely, because like Mr. Paul has mentioned that it's really about leadership process, because because being a leader is not about being inside a position as well. Because definitely what you can do is just take baby steps. You can maybe start leading group discussions. You can maybe start, leading up projects. Maybe start, just leading your class as a whole. Maybe just your group of friends to really achieve something really great. Especially later on in the year, as task and group work becomes more prevalent. Then definitely you can start there. Then the more that you start to do it, the more things that you start to see, and maybe you start realizing on how rewarding it actually is to be a leader. And once you feel that you're in a comfortable spot, be prepared to challenge yourself even more. Even if you think that you're not really prepared, there's only really one way that you can find out whether or not if you're good. If you think you can do it and you want to take the challenge, go ahead and challenge yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Lian. We do have questions from the participants. There's a question from Ishita, who said today, what IB learner profiles have helped to cultivate your leadership skills? And Ishita, yes, a question to Lian directly. What IB learner profiles have helped you develop your leadership skills, Lian?
I think definitely the IB learner profiles, definitely, when it comes to leadership, and you take into considerations of so many different aspects within leadership as well. And I would say all of them pretty much applies. But one of the most important thing as a leader, especially in a multiracial country, and in a school with so many different and interesting and unique personalities and individuals, the most important IB learner profile that really helped push me forward is open-mindedness. Because we should really always be open, be open to different ideas, especially ideas which contradicts your own. I think one of the most important things about especially being a leader and representing other people is to really understand other people's minds or ideas, especially like minds or ideas that really contradicts or opposes your own. Because it's not about really fighting that person's idea, but it's rather trying to see their perspective, trying to see why would they might think that, and how you and that other person can come together and mix up your ideas that forms up the best idea that represents both you and that other person. So I would say open-mindedness is definitely the IB learner profile that really helped push me forward as a leader.
Thank you for sharing that, Lian. Another question from Yen. Yen, I'm reading a question from the chat box. Would you mind unmuting and probably asking the question to Lian so I don't misinterpret your question? Hi, Yen. Are you able to unmute? Okay, as you get, okay, yes.
Sorry, I was on the hands free. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Basically, just actually for maybe for Paul, that question that I would like to know,
Okay.
like, how do you encourage leadership teams is actually, like you only have few leader in a community. So how do you help encouraging more leader in a community, like giving opportunity, especially for the more reactive ones, like the student who is not very active?
I'm really struggling to hear the question clearly.
All right. Basically, how do you encourage, leaders in a community? Like you're trying to grow more in a community, like we can have only one chairman in a society or whatever, but how do you encourage more so that everyone is given a fair opportunity to learn through or unless their leadership skills?
Well, for a start, we talked a little bit earlier. I hope I understand your question clearly. But being a leader isn't only about being the top person in an organization. Like, not everybody can be the CEO. That's the reality of it. But there's different kinds of leadership. You can be a leader of public opinion. Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist, for example, from Sweden, is someone to consider. You can be a loud and clear voice for good in your community. And this is also an example of great leadership. So again, we're making this distinction between boss and leader. Another thing is that I'm guessing that you mean, how do we encourage our students to be leaders within the community? And of course, part of the IB, a core IB concept is community service. So it's a little bit difficult in the middle of a pandemic. Of course, that's the reality that we're dealing with, but we do have some light at the end of the tunnel at the moment with a gradual reopening, a gradual return to something like normal. And so what we need is community engagement, getting our students, young people, engaged in community outreach. And this isn't just a hobby or extracurricular activity or a co-curricular activity. It is actually a core component of an IB education. So I think just getting out and engaged and involved in community projects is a fantastic way to build up leadership in young people. Lian mentioned this as well earlier. Young people you might just be the team leader or a project leader. In the classroom, we see this. I think the move to project-based teaching and learning is a great move, and we see it more and more. I'm a great believer in it. So you may divide your classroom. I know this isn't the community, but the classroom, divide it into, I don't know, 6 or 7 teams, and then appoint a team leader for each of those teams. Similarly, in community outreach, we might have a team leader for particular projects that are operating outside the school. We are, even though we're still officially in the lockdown still, we are very, very busy behind the scenes, preparing for the gradual reopening. And we are coming up with this now, looking at ways of getting back into these community projects and working with groups around us. So there's quite a bit of work happening behind the scenes to reactivate all of this. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
It's a great question. Thank you. It's a very
thank you,
thoughtful question. Got me thinking.
Thank you, Paul. Next question, one of parents, Mr. Prabuk. Mr. Prabuk, would you like to unmute and share your question?
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Before I ask the question, I just want to say, as a parent, I think the school administration, the team, from the principal right down to the teachers, have done a fantastic job during this lockdown and having online classes. Especially when I hear horror stories from my friends and their kids, how they're experiencing the online classes in other schools. So I think Fairview has done a fantastic job, and that is testament to leadership. It is a perfect example of leadership, good leadership. So my question, it's for both Lian and Mr. Paul. One is, with respect to Lian, is directed towards his experience as a student leader, and to Mr. Paul, taking, I know you recently joined, but towards teachers and adults. The question is this: as a leader, you have to manage people. Essentially, that's essentially your job. If I'm not, if I can simplify the job, how do you manage the different types of personalities. You have some people who are like big picture people, some people who need to understand details. And then on top of that, you might have conflicting views. So how do you herd the crowd, so to speak, towards the shared vision of what you want to achieve? So same question to both Lian and Mr. Paul.
Thank you. Very interesting question. Mr. Paul, what are your thoughts?
I'll have a shot at it, and if I miss part of the question, I think it's kind of a multi-layered question. If I miss a part of it, please just take it further. Part of it, you said about managing people. I think this goes back to what both Lian and I were speaking to earlier about absolutely not micromanaging. Trust, but validate, authorize other people. Okay, look, this is the big picture. This is the mission. And then authorize team members to take on parts of that mission in a coordinated way. Now, however they choose to do it, doesn't matter, up to them. Let them do it in their own way. And each of us has his or her own way of doing it. And it really doesn't matter. There are many pathways that take us to the same destination. The leader's role in this is to make sure that whatever pathway each of us is taking for components, make sure that we all arrive at the same destination. I think this is fundamentally true, and it's such a good point. It is not the leader's role to set the pathway. It is the leader's role to make sure, to coordinate that we're all heading to the same destination and that we get there. And look, if anybody takes a misstep along the way, great, that's fine. We are absolutely able to get back on the right pathway. Let's work together to make that happen. There's another thing I'd like to add as well, and this truly comes from personal experience. And that is that you talked about different people, different ideas, whatever. Absolutely, and that's a good thing. That's something that we celebrate. We don't want to lead in an echo chamber. We mustn't surround ourselves with yes people who just agree with us because we're the boss. You'll want to hear different voices. And the nugget of wisdom, if you don't mind me terming it like that, is that behind a closed door, encourage dispute. Make it clear, I don't care if you disagree with me. I don't care if you think I'm talking nonsense. Speak your voice. You will be heard. However, once the decision is made and we step out from that closed door, everybody's got to be on the same page. And I think this closed door, open door thing is super important. So around the round table, you've got to create an environment in your team that everybody is confident to disagree with you. Maybe I got it wrong. Fantastic. Tell me why you think I got it wrong. I will listen, I swear. I still might not agree with you, but I will value your opinion. I will take it on board. But by the time the round table makes a decision, whether it's what I thought was right or whether it's what the team thinks is right, the moment we step outside that door, even if I didn't personally agree with it, even if the decision-making progress went in a different direction than what I personally wanted, I will defend it to the death outside the closed door. So a united front is presented by the team. However, a disunited front is valuable, is a great asset, but that happens behind the closed door.
Definitely. I think I personally would agree. I would definitely agree with that as well, because as you mentioned, like how do through my own experience, how would I deal with the different individualities and the different types of style, and how do I adapt within the student council? Because within the student council, we have around 55 or more so students within our student councils, and from various different grade levels, from very, very young M1s to all the way to my own classmates as well, which would be in the IB diploma program. So there's pretty much students who just started the MYP program and people who just already finished the MYP program. And so you have definitely a variety of different individualities within that entire spectrum. And how personally I deal with them is that one of the most important things that I like to do is just to have a sense, just have a friendly relationship with them. From time to time, whenever the situation prevails, just feel free to have a chat with them. Just say, hey, what do you think? What are your thoughts? And once you start to have that conversation going through, maybe through text or call or maybe face-to-face conversation, one way or another, slowly your intuition will start getting a sense on maybe what type of different style may work for this person. Maybe this person is a bit more straightforward. Maybe this person is a bit more understanding. Maybe this person is really, really good at what they do, but maybe they just need a bit guidance from our end. And so just having that, casual conversation with them as well, you start to have that sense on how you should be, on how you should adapt your style to them. And, sooner or later, you just have this whole homogeneous system that works between you as a leader and as the students. And now going back to your other question in regards, how do we deal with a conflicting idea? From time to time, especially when leading the student council, which represents the student body, definitely there are varieties of different conflicting ideas, not even within just from student body, but within my own personal team as well. I may present a particular idea, and they and my own personal team can definitely, have a conflicting idea or maybe disagree with the idea, and it's my own responsibility to listen, absolutely listen to their idea as well, because as a leader, I'm to lead the people who works with me. They're working with me and I'm working for them, and they're not working for me. So that's the type of thing as a leader from which I understand, especially in this organization which serves the students. And so an example for, let's say just a couple of days ago, I was suggesting a new schedule for our meetings, where should we have three meetings in a week, one meeting for the entire presidential team, one meeting for the secretary department, and one meeting for the PR department, which is within the student council. And so I personally thought that was an idea that would work, but the other presidents disagreed with that. And what I find fascinating is that I just always have a personal liking towards just really discussing with other people who disagree with my idea, and and it's like, as Mr. Paul mentioned, it's absolutely crucial to listen and to defend their idea. And even if you disagree with it or agree with it, and maybe if you can't, it's important for you to understand where they are speaking from. And so that's type of the experience that that I would have a student. There's definitely like varieties of different experiences as well. But just from like a more recent experience, I would say that is one of the examples.
Right. Thank you, Lian. Mr. Pramuk, any further thoughts to that?
No.
Okay.
Impressive answers. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for the question.
Thank you. We have, yes, okay. So that's from Mr. Pramuk, impressively mature approach for someone of a young age. That's to you, Lian. Young, but definitely not inexperienced. Fantastic response. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pramuk, for that. Okay. Any others from our participants, from our parents? Else, while we gather more, allow me to share with you information about the organizers, our school. Fairview International School is the top IB school in Malaysia. The school has won multiple awards, including the International Award in Teaching and Learning, the 5 Stars Quality Assurance title by Malaysian government, as well as being one of the member of Council of International Schools, CIS. Fairview's successes include smooth career transitions, high academic success, and great communication. 60% of all students receive scholarships offers, and some before they get their final results. And we are indeed the top IB diploma program school in 2020. And we could not have done this without the support and strong communication channels with our parents. 90% of our parents feel that the communication at Fairview is frequent, delightful, and relevant. And this is our academic achievement. So you can see through the IBDP results, it's really strong. Besides the extremely high average score, we also have 100% passing score for 7 years. At Fairview, we believe that our success is a result of our uniqueness through our IB pedagogies, the way we teach and the way students learn. Our future-proof at FIS series of events and the Everyone's a Musician program. So feel free to contact us through the different channels displayed on the screen. We have 5 campuses in Malaysia. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we love you to be part of our FIS community. So if either you have further questions for our speakers, please stay, and we'd really like to have the dialogue with you. Otherwise, for those who have to go, have a lovely weekend and stay safe wherever you are. Any other questions from our participants today?
No.
No? Oh, who's that? Who am I speaking to?
It's me.
It's you. Okay. Anything else? Thank you. You who responded. I'm going to stop sharing now. If it's all right with everyone, perhaps you could just... Oh, there's a question. Yes, let's take this question. Top... Okay, so if there is a case of a top leadership failure, what would you do about it? So if there's failure in top leadership, what would the response or the reaction?
Maybe I'll...
Oh, right. Okay. So sorry, this parent rephrased it. So what is your top leadership failure? So I think this is personally to Paul or to Lian as leaders, your own sharing of a time that it didn't go well as planned, and what was your response, your rescue plan, or what happened after that?
Oh gosh. Okay, I'll have a shot at that one first. I can't think of like a personal failure exactly, but one perhaps some misjudgment. It was the beginning of this year, actually. It was January this year. I was the key decision maker at this time in this location, and it was about the reopening of the school in January. So it's the first week of January, considering the pandemic. And so we established a great process of reopening, but it was the wrong time to reopen back then. Really, we made a wrong decision about opening too quickly and too big. And we didn't inspire the confidence of parents adequately. And within a week, we had to close the school down again because there were almost no students left. 20% of the students, we went down from about 95% down to 20% within 5 days. And I think this was not just because of the reality of the pandemic, but I think it was, we hadn't done the groundwork adequately for the reopening of the school. I may add, and I won't say too much about this, this was before I joined Fairview, so it wasn't at Fairview. And we don't, how can I put this? I want to take it up to a level of abstraction, and it does go to something we said earlier. You don't make mistakes exactly. Mistakes are learning experiences. Things didn't turn out as you hoped they might. But we learn even when we get things wrong. So I got a lot of that personally because in hindsight, I could actually go back and figure out the process and how it could have been done better. And so this was a great professional learning experience for me. So yeah, in one level, it was a mistake. In one level, it was something that we got wrong, that I got wrong. However, not a mistake that's going to be made again, because if we make mistakes, it's such a valuable learning experience as long as you engage with it positively. Open yourself up to it, be humble, learn from it, know how to do it better. So I really see these mistakes, and I'm going to keep putting it in quotation marks, they are opportunities to learn. But the important thing is, be humble about it. Open yourself up to doing better next time.
Definitely. I think definitely.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul, for that. Yeah, learn from mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. I
Yes,
think
Lian.
that's also something like, that's quite prevalent, and especially like, quite relevant with me as well. I think I can't really think of like, the hugest top one, but I'd say a really great example, which I could give you, is that in the beginning of this academic year for quarter 1, we were trying to come up with ideas, some proposals, and some activities to pretty much conduct within the first quarter of the academic year. And so with that being said, we just refreshed our constitution, and we had a new timeline in place where essentially in the first 2 weeks of the beginning of the quarter, that is when we would get our proposals done. And during the break which we had, which is like the 4 weeks before that, which would usually be when we be getting all the proposals and all the ideas done. However, we were due to misjudgment and to misjudgment and lack of preparations, because of from my own misjudgment, we ended up really starting the proposals in the first and second week of the quarter 1, instead of getting them approved and trying to really rush to get them approved. And with that, we kind of really didn't prepare ourselves with the timelines or any of the planning that comes into mind. And with that kind of also led to some other problems, because I personally didn't really started that initiative into really, to really keep that track record and make sure that we're not taking too much on ourselves. Because do keep in mind, because this is the first time that, me and most of my team, would be the other presidential board, have just started IBDP, which would still be following the the entire IB program from MYP to IBDP, which is still under IBO, but it's still in a sense an entirely different program with a entirely different pace. And I think it's more a sense where I didn't really prepare for that. And so that really took the lessons, or rather the opportunities to learn from those mistakes, which I've made, really pretty much stayed with me. And so with this quarter, we pretty much have a different set in mind, because like it would be like if we repeated the same mistakes as the last quarter, next quarter we would be pretty much probably next week, which was when we be starting the proposals. But as of today, we would already have been finishing up most of the proposals, and now we have a more constructed and rather general timeline with other people to really help and push to make sure everybody stays on track. And so it's just kind of that really dynamic shift, which like Mr. Paul has mentioned, that the mistakes are really pretty much opportunities for you to learn and develop, and to not make the same mistakes again. So that would be more of a more relevant and recent experience which I've had.
Right. Thank you both, Lian and Paul, for your very, very sincere sharing. All right, it's time for us to wrap it up. Just want to share with our participants today the key takeaways, I think, especially for our younger students out there. I noticed a couple have messaged to me. They're from P3, P5, M1, and so on. So to start being a leader, we heard from Mr. Paul and from Lian, take baby steps. Right? He didn't become the president of Student Council overnight. He took baby steps. He led small groups first. And also he shared, for those who may be a bit shy, right? Think about leadership as service to others. That was point 3 from Mr. Paul as well, right? When you lead, the spotlight doesn't have to be on you. You are there to help coordinate and lead others and bring out the best in them and also in yourself. Right? And also the final point from Lian and Paul in their sharing just now, I bring to you a quote by John F. Kennedy: leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. So as leaders, you're also learning. And the shared, you're learning faster because you have to reflect. One of our learner profiles, reflect. Reflection is key. Reflect and learn so we can lead others better. So with that, thank you everyone for your time. It's really great morning to have all of you here as we learn and listen from Paul, Lian, and the dialogue, the rich dialogue that we had. Thank you all for your contributions. And we hope to see you again. Catch us on next session of our Breakthrough Stories, Journey of Hope by Fairview International School. Thank you. Have a good day. Blessed weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.